Growing up can be hard. As you get older, the things you love start to not spark the same level of passion from you as they once did. And this is especially true for anime. Anime is arguably more popular than it's ever been. Every year that passes, more and more phenomenal shows get released, and with them, more and more fans are cultivated. Honestly, it's the best time to be an anime fan right now. And yet, despite that, I can never go back to being my younger self, when I could turn on just about any anime and think it was the greatest thing I had ever seen. Even with incredibly popular, critically acclaimed shows, there's always that small, cynical part of me that always seems to find some kind of critique of what I'm watching. And it's depressing. Realistically, I'll never be able to revive that version of me when I could just turn on an anime, be completely unaware of any of its flaws, and just be swept away. That is, until I watched Frieren. Frieren is very special to me, and I didn't even know it existed until just a few months ago. That's how powerful this anime was for me. At first glance, Frieren doesn't seem that special. Medieval fantasy anime are a dime a dozen nowadays, and it's hard for a lot of them to stand out. So then why is it exactly that Frieren has gone on to become the massive success that it is, pulling in a huge amount of viewers and garnering high critical praise across the board? Well, let's talk about it. Frieren began its life in April of 2020 as a series published in Weekly Shonen Sunday, the same magazine that publishes popular manga like Urusei Yatsura, Case Closed, and Komi Can't Communicate. It was created by author Kanehito Yamada and illustrator Tsukasa Abe, and much of Frieren's success can be credited to these two individuals. Now, I just want to clarify, there is barely any information about these two online. Education, gender, upbringing, there's like nothing. I'm honestly not even sure if that's actually their real names, honestly. I mean, this picture comes up when you search, but I'm not gonna trust that. So in an attempt to keep myself from looking stupid in the future, I'm just gonna refer to them in a neutral sense. Anyway, what were we talking about again? Oh yeah, Frieren. What we do know is that Frieren's author, Kanehito Yamada, has written two manga in the past. Nanashi wa Itai Dare Desho and Baki Hakase to Robot Shut. I'm just going to put it on the screen. It's called that, okay? That's what it's called. From what I can find, neither of these series were crazy popular or successful, but they did run long enough to allow Yamada to experiment and build up their skills. The culmination of that practice resulting in the masterpiece that is Frieren. If you've seen our Akira Toriyama video, then you might be aware of this quote from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure creator Hirohiko Araki, where he claims that one of, if not the most important thing when writing a manga is characters. And this is the area where Frieren absolutely soars. For example, let's take, Frieren. At the beginning of the series, it's established that she is over 1,000 years old, which is considered young by elf standards. 10 years for us might as well be the length of any average day for her. She has seen so many people die within her lifetime, including her master who saved her from demons when she was little. Because of this, early on in the series timeline, she tended to avoid forming any kind of connection with other people, preferring rather to live in solitude and stick to her own devices. Anyone reading this description of her would simply assume that her character is removed from society and maybe somewhat distant and aloof. And while we do see elements like these, what makes Frieren stand out as a character is all the small things we see about her. In a lot of ways, she's actually kind of immature for her vast age. She doesn't like getting up in the morning. Fern constantly has to fix her hair for her. She often gets stuck in mimic chests looking for new magic spells. She tried to give an 18-year-old a clothes dissolving potion for his birthday. All you need to know is that the difference between a good writer and a great one is when you don't focus on the broad aspects of a character's personality, but the very small, minute minute details. Because in reality, people can't really be boiled down to 2 or 3 key defining traits. They're the sum of every life experience they've ever had up to that point. To put it in layman's terms, it's basically the difference between seeing your character as a pie chart and more so seeing them as a petri dish, made up of hundreds and hundreds of smaller quirks and idiosyncrasies that all form together to construct a character. And this doesn't just apply to Frieren, but most of the characters in the series. It feels like the moment a new character shows up, the writer has already taken into account every footstep that character took to get to this moment. And what only adds to this is Frieren's flawless character designs from Tsukasa Abe. In an industry where creators feel obligated to tack on as many accessories and over-the-top design flourishes as possible, Frieren is much more well-balanced. No character feels like a messy amalgamation of design elements, but at the same time, every character is designed well enough to where they can all stick out from the crowd in their own way. And when combined with Frieren's immaculate character writing and development, you have a formula for a truly special series. Which begs the question, how is a shonen series like Frieren able to balance out this level of quality in developing so many of its characters? And the answer is that Frieren isn't your typical shonen. I just want to preface this by saying I love shonen anime, and I always have. Nothing I'm saying here is really an insult to shonen, more so an explanation of how Frieren is able to stand out in such a massive way. One of the key priorities in most shonen anime, especially the biggest ones, is the action. Action is like air for a shonen series. Without it, it will suffocate. However, Frieren is different. There are not a lot of fights in Frieren, at least in comparison to a lot of the bigger shonen series right now. And this could sound boring for anyone who's looking to get into Frieren, but this is actually its greatest strength. Without good characters, action and fights really don't mean much. The reason people are able to get invested in a character's conflict is because of the character. A lightsaber fight is just that, a lightsaber fight. But when you put those lightsabers into the hands of Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader, suddenly it's no longer just a lightsaber fight. Story and characters is what gives conflict meaning, and Frieren understands this perfectly, so it de-emphasizes its action and battles and focuses its attention towards, well, just these characters interacting with each other. If the story was primarily concerned with getting us to the next battle and plot revelation as soon as possible, we wouldn't get the intricate details of each character that truly make them feel human, or elf, or demon, or dwarf. It doesn't matter. This development doesn't just apply to the characters, but it spills out to the world as well. One of the biggest benefits of having a protagonist that can live for thousands of years is that we as the viewer can see how these massive gaps of time can change the world as we know it. Not only can characters change over these gaps of time, but landscapes, towns, villages, even different groups and factions. And because Frieren is constantly traveling around, it never feels like we stay in one place for too long, unless it's for a very specific story reason. Every place Frieren travels to isn't just for a change of scenery either, because often each new locale presents the characters with some kind of interesting lore about the world that serves as a challenge for the characters to overcome. And this is why Frieren's writing is so perfect. Developing a world that feels ancient and natural is one thing. Being able to fill that world with interesting and unique characters is another thing. What truly makes a story mind-blowing, though, is when you do both of these things, not parallel to each other, but in conjunction with each other. The trials that the world naturally presents, testing the characters and allowing them to grow through it. It's this perfect harmony of character development and world building that allows Frieren to stand tall despite its de-emphasis on its battles, though that is something I want to talk about. I've been saying that Frieren doesn't have a lot of battles, and that's true. It's not really what the series emphasizes. That being said, if you go into this anime thinking that the battles are going to be lacking, you've got another thing coming. With fights being as infrequent as they are in Frieren, when they do happen, they're only going to hit that much harder. And trust me, when they hit like a dump truck. Considering how serene and calm the anime usually is, it's kind of shocking just how brutal and high stakes some of these conflicts can be. I mean, like...
Ara, kill yourself.
The fights in Frieren, to put it lightly, are savage, and what elevates them is not only the mind-melting animation quality that Madhouse is able to put out, but the way each character is able to stand out in terms of the way they conduct combat. Frieren's apprentice Fern, for example, is like a cute little machine gun turret of magic. She's only mastered the one basic offensive spell, Zoltrak, but can use that one spell so quickly and in such abundance that she can not only catch her opponent off guard, but completely overwhelm them. On the other hand, you have two characters like Kana and Lavina. Kana able to manipulate water and Lavina able to manipulate ice. When on their own, they're pretty decent, but when together, they are a force to be reckoned with. Then you have a character like Ubel, who can completely skip the step of actually understanding the mechanics and fundamentals of how a certain spell might work and copy it solely by understanding the feelings and personality of the one who originally used the spell. Then of course you have Frieren, who's just basically a little magical atom bomb. The battles of Frieren aren't treated so much like an afterthought as they are a special event, a fireworks culmination of character development and world building, tying all three of these elements together to make what is, well, my favorite current anime. But really, it's not even these three specific elements that push Frieren over the edge for me. What truly makes Frieren special, at least to me, is encapsulated in who I have to say is my favorite character in the entire series. That character being Himmel the hero. Himmel, to put it simply, represents everything that Frieren is about. It's well known at this point that Himmel dies in the very first episode of Frieren, and for a first-time viewer, this can seem a bit odd. After all, why should you care about the death of a character you know little to nothing about? But after his death occurs, something strange happens. Frieren starts to cry. A character who throughout the entire first episode is shown to be, at best, apathetic towards any kind of bonds that she forms with other people. As the show continues, episode after episode goes by, and we see more of Frieren's past adventures with Himmel. And as you see more and more of these flashbacks, you begin to feel something well up inside of your stomach. Something that feels like regret. The regret that you had someone in your life who you didn't really deserve to have, but they were always there for you regardless. And you never even took the time to fully appreciate them while they were there. Growing up is hard. And what makes it the hardest is when the people who at some point in your life you never thought would be gone suddenly are. And suddenly you understand exactly why Frieren is crying. In the grand scheme of things, we as people are not around for a long time. Everyone passes on, including you and all the people you hold dear. So in the time we have, we should be spending it forming as many memories with our loved ones as possible, because the love we give each other is something that deserves to be cherished. And that's why Frieren is as good as it is. Because through everything, what Frieren makes you feel the most is human.